Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is spiritual awakening, and we're fortunate to have with us to talk about spiritual awakening the Reverend Dr. Alexander Arthur, who is the pastor of the Word of Life Christian Center, located in Nashville, Tennessee. And of course, Dr. Arthur, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you.
And to tell you how delighted we are to have you, and especially to think in terms of the topic that we're going to deal with this morning, spiritual awakening, because I think it has been demonstrated that, especially since September the 11th, there has been an increase in spiritual activities among many segments of society, and etc. And we want to explore that this morning. But before we get into that, Dr. Arthur, let's have you to talk about your background, your education, and some of the information that was important in terms of your life and eventually leading you to the pastor of the Word of Life Christian Center, after which we will talk about something about spiritual awakening. You can define that, and then we'll get into the show for today.
Thank you, Dr. Haney, for inviting me. And I'm originally from Ghana, West Africa. I was born there, went to high school there, and then came to the United States, to University of New Orleans, did my undergraduate work in political science, and from there went into Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio, for my master's and PhD in international politics. After which I was invited for an interview at Tennessee State University, which happened to be then my first job in my career, where I worked for 8 years, and then from there to Austin Peay State University for another year, and then to Fisk, where I ended up staying there for 10 years, during which I was appointed as the executive assistant to the president of the university, and thereby had some responsibilities for administration, along with my professorial duties. And then, but in between all of that, came a time when I had a call of the God that I serve, to the living God. And in 1989, it really coincided my time of work at Fisk University. And so then I began this ministry, a church in my home, and gradually it grew to the point where now we are on Clarksville Highway. We call it a church on a hill right next to Kruger, called Word of Life Christian Center. It used to be directly across the Lowriders church, not church, Lowriders Club, Lord have mercy, Lowriders Club. So we've been there for 2 years now, and we believe in God for more work in the community and having an impact in this city for the Lord. Also, I need to say that I'm married with 4 children, and one who works as a youth minister in our church. He's made me a grandfather. And then there is a second child who finished from Fisk University and working on her master's, and now lives in Washington, D.C. with her husband. A third child who's doing her medical training at Meharry Medical College, going into her second year. And a baby child who goes to Fisk University now, also going to her second year at Fisk University. And so you can tell the Arthur family is kind of spread out and loaded with all kind of work being done for the Lord. And then finally, I need to say that I have been given, as I said earlier, a wife who has been a wonderful partner. We've been married since 1991. And of course, this is my second marriage, and it's been very wonderful. And so I thank God all that has made it possible for me today to do the work that I'm doing.
You know, Dr. Arthur, I think one of the things that we've indicated earlier, that since September 11th, there has been this increased awareness of things that are of a spiritual nature. But now, when you talk about spiritual awakening, let's give our audience some kind of definition. Let's give you, before we talk about some aspects of spiritual awakening.
I think that what we need to even do before that is to understand that we are spirit beings. And I think most people don't recognize that. And because they didn't know that, if you talk about spiritual awakening, they don't seem to really relate to that. But if we were to accept the fact that we are spirit beings, then spiritual awakening will make more sense to us. When God made us, the Bible tells us we were made in His own image, in His own likeness. And then in John 4:24, God, through His Son Jesus Christ, made it clear to us that He, God, is a spirit. And as a spirit, if I was made in the image of God, then that makes me also a spirit. and yet a spirit is invincible. And for me to be seen, it makes it a little difficult, you know. And so why is it that if I was made a spirit, that I can somehow or another be seen and be visible, and because other spirits are not seen like angels as we know. But what God did was that he made this earth for man, and in this three-dimensional planet that we live on, that it became necessary for us to be put into a body, an earth suit we call it, which is a body that we carry. And most people think that we are bodies and minds, and that's all. But the root of man is a spirit, and that we are spirit beings. And therefore, when we talk about spiritual awakening, it is a recognition of recognizing and becoming aware of who you are, and awakening to the fact that you are a spirit being, and thereby looking into the things of the spirit as being more primary and more principal than, if you may, physical or mental things that we've. Now, for you and I, having been trained in academia over the years, and I had the pleasure of working with you at Tennessee State University for a while, and we're all involved in intellectual exercise and all that, and there's a place for that, no question about it. But ultimately, we have to go to the roots of man, and that root of man is a spirit. And therefore, spiritual awakening is recognizing the fact that you are a spirit, and thereby learning from then on what you're supposed to do as a spirit being. And that's something that I'm here to talk about today.
You know, a person who is not aware of being a spirit, that is not aware of the invisible part of himself or herself, cannot be spiritually, must be spiritually awakened in order to be aware. Is that what we're saying?
That's what we're saying. That's what we have to come to the recognition, that because sometimes we think that we go to church and we do the things that are religious, and we, in a way, substitute that for that spiritual awakening that is necessary. And so therefore, people often think that, well, I go to church, I'm all right, and so that's fine. No, there's more to that than that. We want to be able to go beyond the visible, go beyond the mundane, go beyond the usual, and get deeper into the realm of the invisible, the realm of the, what I would call a preamble to the Constitution, the real man, in a sense. And so as time goes on, we're going to get deeper into it, and hopefully show people how it is that you can get spiritually awakened by doing certain specific things that is required for you to move into that realm.
And so there are indications that you see around you every day that folks stand in need for this.
And I think that that's the thing that is really sometimes saddens me. There's a certain desire on the part of people to meet this need that they have in themselves, that they recognize that they must be awakened to something. They recognize that there's something that is on the horizon that they must look into, they must investigate, and then they go on various levels, the various paths of discovery, never get to the real root of it. And that's where the problem usually comes, and people often, for that reason, will replace the root of who they are, which is in this case a spirit, with other things such as drugs and you can name it, of things that they are using to substitute for this. But the moment you find out who you are, and therefore then you know that you are tied to the Father of all spirits, which is God, then you want to make sure that you want to do something about it. For example, you know, as you know, if you take a plant out of the soil, that the plant after a while will wither and die, because the plant needs to be in its environment that nurtures it, which is the soil, with its nutrients to keep it alive. Now, in the same way, if you take a fish out of the water, that environment that gives it life, that fish will ultimately eventually die. Well, you come to man. If you take man out of the soil of his existence, in this case, the Father of all spirits, then you get to the point where man will also. And so we'll get to that more, and we'll talk about it as we go on.
Very good. And of course, Dr. Arthur, we are coming up to our first commercial break, but what you're saying is that there's a little God in all of us, and we simply do not recognize that, and that you're going to give us some information during the second segment as to how some kind of steps that we might be able to follow in order to become more aware of who we are spiritual beings. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Talking to the Reverend Dr.